Good morning. Here is Staying Together shir number 4. Hope you guys are well. Not the most glamorous of backgrounds behind me, but it's quiet, it's early, and most people in my house are sleeping. So I thought it's a good time to feel connected and to share some words of Torah with you today. And these words are part of a broader philosophy that some Jews succeed in living with all the time. And that is the concept of Ein Yeush Ba'olam. There's never a time when we need to just totally despair of life and of living. And let me explain to you why that might be. So let me describe a potential scenario that sounds very religious in essence. Life is difficult and quite challenging, and you feel like you're going to break, but you can't change the situation, so you accept it. How are you doing? Getting on with things. It's a phrase that we all utter quite regularly. Now, we are described in our literature as ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. We are believers, the children of believers. We know that everything comes from Hashem. We understand fundamentally that everything that happens is for the good. Even if we can't understand it intellectually, we are religiously educated to accept different situations. We can understand that this is what Hashem has brought about. It's not what we would want, but we accept it on a very superficial level. We wish it could change, but there's an acceptance. The person will do what they need to do. Day follows by night. They'll do what they have to do to stay alive, but it'll be bitter, it'll be difficult, it'll be complicated. That type of person's really reached the situation of Yeush. She's sort of given up any chance that it could be better. But Chazal Melamdim, the rabbis teach us that when a person loses an object, anything, you drop something and you lose it, and you feel that there's no way of being able to get it back, and more than that, you can't get it back because you can't identify that object as being yours, the person will sigh, shrug their shoulders and go, well, I've lost it, it's gone. And what happens legally at that moment when you give up ever receiving your object back, you lose ownership over that object. You're owning that. You and that object have parted company. And if anybody were to find that object without there being any way of identifying who the owner is, they would be able to take it for themselves. Yeush, you've given up hope. Now that's true of things we own, and that's true as a metaphor, and as a concept for experiences that we can find ourselves in. We don't find a way of reconnecting to the object. We don't find a way of solving our problem. Came along Rabbi Tzadok Hakon of Lublin and taught as follows: Ein li Yehudi lehityaesh mishum davar. A Jew should never give up from anything. Ein Yeush klal. There's never a moment of despair by a Jew. Ki zeh kol ha'adam ha'Yisraeli. What's the whole essence of being a Jew? Laha'amin, to really believe. She'ein lehityaesh klal. Never give up, never despair. But why? What's going on? So we say every day in the davening, in the Shemona Esrei, Mechayei Meisim Ata, you bring the dead back to life. Rav laHoshia, that you're there to you can save any situation. Hashem is there to transform a situation. One that looks totally bleak can be turned around. Even during the problem, before the problem, after the problem, things can go a different way. It's never a point where Hashem can't change a situation. And if one really internalizes that and lives with that, you got a choice. You can live with the doom and gloom and a level of being morose and being fed up. And if that animates you, then good luck to you, because that's a really bad place to be. Alternatively, you can live with a chiyus, with the sense of being alive, that every situation is fundamentally can be changed, or one can be brought about to see why that situation is not as bad as one might think. As the rabbis say in the Gemara, afilu cherev chado al savora, even if there's a sharp knife blade on your neck, al yimna atzma min harachamim, you shouldn't for one moment think that it's all over, even though the guillotine's about to drop. It's not true. Anything can happen. Ki ein yeush klal atzel ish Yehudi. There's no despair by a Jew. But Hashem yisbarach, and Hashem yachol la'azor b'chol inyan. Hashem can help at any moment. Now that sounds very prosaic and very sweet and very lovely, but let's go back to our first description. The Jew, the individual who believes with all his heart there's nothing that Hashem can't do, but nonetheless he's walking around with like that type of feeling. Yeah, he's schlepping himself or herself and he feels like it's all over, there's nothing he can do. He gets it religiously. If you asked him to swear on a Bible, he would say, yeah, I believe. But how do you go from I believe to a change in that? How does that change? That's not so simple. Now we say on Rosh Hashanah in the davening, V'yeto kol pol ki ata fialtoi v'yovin kol yitzur ki ata yitzartoi v'yoyma. This is the conclusion. Kol asher neshama b'yapoi. What do we daven for? We daven for on Rosh Hashanah that kol pol, that every single human being alive will know about their Creator. V'yoyma, everyone who has a soul in them will say, Hashem Elokei Yisrael Melech. Hashem is the king, or Malchusoi B'Kol Mashal, and his majesty, his sovereignty is everywhere. That there is a God, and he is king. That's what we daven for that realization that Hashem is real. And here lies the challenge for all of us. What's the life challenge? Will we see in creation the power of Hashem? Will we see Hashem everywhere? Or do we see ourselves as being the prime movers and shakers for every experience that we have? And this is where human life is so difficult. The world hides Hashem from us. It's called olam, from the word laha'alim, to conceal. And it's very hard to think that Hashem is always there when we see ourselves as being the prime movers and shakers of all our experiences, and except now when we all realize that we're not so wonderful after all, in that the world can function without our input. Now that concept is expressed differently, obviously, in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Hagmalin Ruban Kesherim, camel riders, so long-distance lorry drivers, in the ancient world, most of them are good, ethical, moral people. Says Rashi, why? Because they're in the desert, and there are lots of bandits and wild animals, and they're very scared, and part of their job will by definition be a sense of prayer. They'll have to daven to Hashem constantly that they don't come across people who might rob them or steal from them. Sailors, they're Hasidim, they're pious. They also go to a place where it's very scary, there are dangers that are present, so they daven. Then it says, the best of doctors go to hell, go to Gehenna. Why is that true? Now, that doesn't mean doctors are bad. Please don't take it out of context. It's talking about a type of person who believes that they are in total control. You've all been to hospitals where the doctor walks in and the nurses run to the side as if somehow some divine being has landed on their ward. When we live normally and we assume that we are in control, that's where things go bad. But those that don't have normal lives, those that travel in places of danger and they recognize that they're not in control, they are brought up to a place where they can recognize there is Hashem, and Hashem is the only one that can help them. Now, focus on this conclusion, it's very smart. If the whole of our life is to recognize there is a God, and that Hashem is in control, and that Hashem is real, then when we get into a situation where we feel we want to despair and we can't do it, two options are available to us. Number one, walk around miserable, feel the whole world's out to get you and it's difficult. You're plodding along, but it's all misery. Or number two, recognize that you have been leapfrogged to the end of the game. You have been given an opportunity by Hashem, a kindness from Hashem to recognize Ein Od Milvado, that there is only Hashem. People are going to live an entire lifetime struggling with that concept, learning to understand that concept. So why is there Ein Yerush Klal? Why is there no point of being in a despair? Because when you get brought to a situation where you feel you want to despair, that you can't do it and you can't change your situation, you realize that only Hashem can change the situation. At that point, you must realize that you have now been given a gift to recognize the truth that everybody else is trying to learn. It's a blessing in your life that you have been brought to that point, to recognize there is a God. Do you get it? It's very smart. Think about it for a minute. So in conclusion, Rabbi Tzadok Cohen of Lublin says as follows: if you think about it, our entire people came about after a feeling of utter despair. Avram and Sarah were old. And who could imagine that such an old woman would have a child? And they completely gave up on any human being being able to help them. And even after the angel told them, she laughed. And it was only their total dependency on Hashem, that realization that Hashem can bring about a change. And if Hashem wants to give them a child, so he'll give them a child. So the entire foundation of the Jewish people is predicated on a couple who had reached that point of recognizing that no one can help them and that only Hashem can help. And rather than being broken at the point of, oh, well, we're never going to have what we want to have, they recognized that Hashem can do anything. And they celebrated being brought to that stage where they could recognize Hashem in their lives and the future as well. The verses in the Tanakh say, "Mi ha'emin l'shmo seinu," who would believe that we're being redeemed? And the Gemara says that Mashiach won't come until we've totally given up with this, with the idea of ever being saved. We've totally abandoned the concept. And so the Pasuk then says, "Habitu el Avraham avichem." Look back to Avraham, ve'al Sarah techolachem, and to Sarah as well. Look back at the foundations of your people. Here's a couple that were on the verge of giving up everything, but then they realized, don't despair. The moment of despair is the biggest light, because you're brought to the realization that Hashem can do anything and Hashem can change the situation. So I want to conclude. Avinu Malkeinu Tehei Hashah Hazo Sha'as Rachamim. This time that we've invested in learning Torah together should be a moment of mercy for Eis Rotzon, in a time of divine will, and the merit of staying together, of learning together, of trying to understand Torah together. We should all be blessed with good health. Our neighbors who are sick should be blessed with a speedy refuah shalema. The world should be healed. We should really daven that blessings of healing, cleansing of the mind, cleansing of the soul, cleansing of relationships, cleansing of society should be brought down if we are in sync with the will of Hashem. Hashem wants to bring blessings of healing to the world. The question is, how much do we want it and in what capacity? If we want to be healed, we want our friends and loved ones to be healed. It's not just their body. Society needs to be healed. So daven today that society should be healed from all its sickness, those created by mankind and those part of nature that we've destroyed. And in that merit, Hashem should bless us all. Have a wonderful day.